Hi, good morning, everyone. Before we start with our technical topic, just like to pray for us. So let's put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Lord God, we praise and thank you for today. We acknowledge your greatness and we thank you for bringing us all together here in Alcobar. And we pray that you will enlighten each and every member and engineer that's currently in attendance. And we also pray for the Philippines, Lord, because ultimately we're doing all our best to to improve the lives of the Philippines. So we pray, Lord, that this conference will result in good governance, good technical advancements in the Philippines and all the Filipino engineers. That's it. Amen. Okay. All right. Okay. So my topic for today, before we start, I just want to ask, kilala niyo ba yung mga transport planners and transport engineers sa mga companies ninyo? Have you ever interacted with them, especially for the consultants and contractors? If not, I think this would be a very novel topic for everyone because most of the people here are not that much interfacing with the transport engineers, even here in the Middle East. So I think it's also very timely since Dr. Padernal said earlier that there's going to be ongoing construction and rehabilitation of the EDSA corridor. So alam ko, when we go home, usually it's our main complaint kasi ibang-iba yung transportation dito sa Middle East as compared sa transportation in the Philippines. And I think we have to, as civil engineers, we have to really consider contributing and sharing our knowledge that we learn from global practices and best benchmarking procedures to always evolve what we have in the Philippines. So my topic would be about the humanizing the roads and transportation to empower inclusive mobility in the Philippines. So yeah, whenever we think about civil engineering, we see mostly vertical structures and the horizontal structures. But the big picture is definitely the cities. In any economy, the biggest indicator of growth in a country is when you develop rural areas and they become more urbanized. And definitely, you see a lot of cities and metropolitans cropping up. And wherever there are big cities, there is also big opportunities. Alam natin yan. That's why some of us coming from the provinces migrate to the cities, to the city centers, to the downtowns, because we know that is where the work is, that is where the opportunity lies. So it is going to be a cycle, or not actually a cycle, but a process, a linear process that once big cities are starting, then you are handed out big opportunities. And of course, with big opportunities come big crowds. So you need to be able to forecast the capacity for the big crowds because you don't want everyone suffering at the expense of the development of the city. So big crowds also require big infrastructure. And this is something that global cities all around the world has already internalized. Whenever they plan for a city, they always plan for a good infrastructure that will always address the needs of the entire crowd na pino-forecast nila. Because of course, you cannot invite people over and not have anything to offer them. And that's where big infrastructure comes in. And part of defining whether we are meeting the goals of a big city and how is it performing is the urban quality of life. So kung familiar kayo sa term ng quality of life, it's usually a term used to rank countries, economies, and other areas. And typically there are a lot of things na nagko-comprise ng quality of life. But for the urban quality of life, this is most specifically applied to cities and urban areas. And the basic definition of the urban quality of life is that it is the general well-being of people and societies living in cities and the quality of the environment in which they live. So, dapat livable ang isang urban area, ang livable ang city. In the Philippines, the urban quality of life for some of the largest cities are also below the standard when compared to the benchmark global cities. So this is something that we as civil engineers, having worked here in the Middle East, can definitely improve upon once we go back. And a key bad effect or negative impact of the urban growth is called the urban sprawl, which is basically a phenomenon that happens when the city grows so much bigger than it can accommodate. So, nadi-displace yung mga tao that has low access, low income, and all other opportunities. So, makikita natin yan. We have BGC. It is a very good city. It's clearly equipped for high facilities and also very advanced technology. But around BGC, you will see slums, you will see islands and pockets of poverty, and that is a perfect example of urban sprawl. Because the people who cannot afford to live in BGC, who are not planned for or accommodated within BGC, are displaced from the central area, and then they tend to go out to the nearby areas, to the nearby neighborhoods, where where the quality of life might be a little bit compromised, pero at least the cost of living is also much more acceptable and accessible for them. So, if you will see here, it's two sides of the coin. Once you start increasing the urban quality of life, and you start catering to those who will benefit the most from the urban QOL, you tend to also develop the urban sprawl, which is the dark side of the urbanization, especially kung hindi as urbanized yung mga neighborhoods na katabi ng certain city na yon. Hold on. Ayan. Ito yung 7 urban quality of life indicators. This is as agreed by the Sustainable Development Goals, which is one of the key frameworks na pina-follow ng global cities whenever we try to develop or master plan, because we have to address all these things. Unang-una sa lahat, the environment. We have to address that we are planning for a sustainable environment. We are not wasteful as engineers. We are able to efficiently design for what is required by the city. And second naman, the quality of life indicator is the physical layout. So of course, when you look at it from the perspective of mapping and traveling, dapat accessible yung mga key locations within the city. And a very disorganized physical layout for the city is not really a good attraction for whatever city it is. So, minsan hindi obvious sa atin na the physical layout matters, but especially when you're navigating, this is something that has to be always considered whenever you are deciding for a high quality of life. The third one is mobility. Mobility is something na being generated from the first two, the environment and the physical layout. So it's like an after effect. When you're thinking about it in terms of input and output, the first two are the inputs, environment and physical layout. The remaining 5 are actually the outputs. Na yun yung bine-benchmark and yun yung bine-measure to see whether it is a good KPI. So as a result of good physical layout and good environment is a high mobility. So if you are a mobile city, that means you are able to reach one place in a certain amount of time. Typically, most cities, global cities nowadays, target a 15-minute commute. So that is such a dream para sa Metro Manila, because in the Philippines, I'm coming from Marikina, and if I need to go to Makati, dapat alas 4 pa lang gising na ako. Hindi natin kakayanin yung 15 minutes. But if you think about the distance, sobrang lapit lang ng Marikina and Makati. I think it would be around less than 40 kilometers na stretch. Compared sa in the UAE, I'm living in Ras Al Khaimah, the most northern emirate. Whenever I have to go to Dubai, that's 200 kilometers away from each other. It only takes me 1 hour. So, ganun yung effect ng mobility. Good design, good infrastructure allows you to be more mobile. That means, kung saan ka man nakatira, you can have opportunity anywhere else. Because you are mobile, you are able to go everywhere that you need to be without any very obvious burden. And the last four indicators are more of social, psychological, economical, and political. It all stems from the first three because you have improved all these things. Obviously, mag-improve rin yung ibang aspects and sectors ng quality of life. So, social, that means your mental health and all, your physical health is being catered for because of the services and all the, hindi kayo nasa-stress and all that. So, nakakater yung social aspect ng buhay ninyo dahil maganda yung city na that you're living in. And psychological, again, it's also with the mental health related. So, of course, if you are less stressed, then you are less likely to encounter more problems and all that. Just because you're living in a good city. And aminin natin, as OFWs, whenever we're here, we really have improved social and psychological disposition compared to when we were in the Philippines. Kasi the cities in the Philippines are not that properly designed to accommodate for our needs. Kumbaga, here we have social and public services that are also incorporated in our daily lives and routines so that we are catered for both the social and psychological. And for the economical aspect, of course, the more you are able-bodied, the more that you are in a better position to explore your opportunities, then you are also being given economical advantages over other people who are in less served areas. And for the political one, syempre, once an individual economy improves, the political status quo also improves. And that's ultimately the goal of good quality of life for urban areas. Among these seven, this is where the engineers can make the change. Siyempre, if we are on the technical side of things, we can only control the environment, the physical layout, and the mobility. Kasi yung mobility nga, as I was saying earlier, is a direct output of those two. The social, psychological, economical, and political, I think there's less opportunity for us to affect it unless we directly work with the government or we work with advocacy groups so that we can influence them into making better informed decisions. So for us, we focus here. We try to do our best to technically serve whatever client we have, whether it is a private client or a public client. And we, of course, ensure that the best practices are always applied and safety and all other needs are being addressed. So this is where we can make the change, and we have to make the change as civil engineers. Now, because we are talking about the Philippines here, I actually prepared a study back when I was doing my master's regarding the unlivable city of in Metro Manila, because I live in Metro Manila, so mas familiar ako doon. And these are the top 3 things that are making Metro Manila and most of the metropolitan cities in the Philippines unlivable. First off, long and difficult commutes. Alam natin yan lahat, na-experience natin yan lahat. We are stuck in the roads or stuck in the train stations, and we cannot find jeeps, we cannot walk anywhere and all that. So, mahirap makapasok, mahirap makalabas. And this is making Manila and all other cities increasingly unlivable. Kasi syempre, ang hirap naman no, na the thing that you will do to feed yourself, you cannot do it properly. And apart from that, second thing is the air and noise pollution from vehicles. Syempre, dahil dumadami yung traffic, lumalaki yung roads, we are also inviting this benefit, which is the air and noise pollution. Hindi siya ganun ka-obvious because we think it's something that we can control, mitigate with our health, with our own personal health practices. But this is actually a public wood that that needs to be taken care of as a planner or as an engineer. Hindi lang yung health sector yung nag-aalala about the air and noise pollution. Also, as transport engineers, we also have to worry about that. Kasi we cannot propose any schemes or new technology that will make the environment harmful for us. Because our main goal as transport engineers is always to transport goods and people, and we cannot have these benefits for the rest of the people. And another thing that is making cities unlivable are, of course, the lack of green public spaces. So, typically, hindi naman natin hinahanap yung public spaces, yung green public spaces. We have malls. Sanay tayo sa mall culture ng Pilipinas. And although now the sentiment is turning that we should look into developing more green and open spaces because that's better for the environment and also it's better for our well-being. Hindi lang pwedeng coop up tayo parate. So we have to breathe in the fresh air and actually let the city breathe. Kung magiging familiar kayo sa mga campaigns ng DENR ngayon, they are talking about green public spaces as the lungs of the city. The less green public spaces we have, the more we are unable to combat the air and noise pollution from vehicles. So it doesn't only bring us good feelings na nasa nature tayo, we are actually actively contradicting one of the other disbenefit, the second disbenefit, which is the air and noise pollution from vehicles. So all of these three are interlinked together. Because we have a growing population in Metro Manila and other metropolitan areas na hindi na-accommodate ng current infrastructure, there is a lot of people going on the roads, buying private cars and all that, hindi nagagamit ng public transit. And because the government sees the demand for the roads, they tend to prioritize road development and highway programs rather than increasing the need for public spaces, which is also a beneficial thing for, not just for us, but also for our future children and all. So, what is the current state of the Philippine streets? Ngayon, the numbers that I will present here would be from around 2020 to 2021, because that's when I did my dissertation. But basically, the current status quo for the Philippine streets is, of course, napaka-importante ng streets sa Pilipinas, and I think overall the world. Hindi ka makakapunta kung wala kang streets. So, in the LGUs that we have right now, 20%, around 1/4 to 1/5, or 20 to 25% of the total gross floor area and physical area of an LGU is devoted to its street. Ito yung backbone. Yung streets natin, whether it is a 2-lane, 1-lane street, or even the big highways, it only comprises 20 to 25% of the entire area. Isipin ninyo, kung isang hektarya yan, onti lang yung contribution ng streets. But you need those streets to be able to explore that full hectare of land. And of course, with regards to ownership, 70% to 80% of these roads is under national ownership. So, wala dapat private road. Unless nasa developer yan, then most definitely all streets should be accessible to the public and owned and regulated by the government. So maintenance and all of the planning, expansion should be done by the government unless there is precedent na it would be undertaken by the private developer or the private owner. And the sad part about the current state of streets right now is that although it is publicly owned by the Filipino people, it tends to benefit only the privileged few. Kasi kung sino lang naman yung may kotse, siya yung makagamit ng streets. Especially right now where we see a lot of things going on in the news na magkaroon lang ng traffic, magkaroon lang ng congestion, bigla nang magkakaroon ng initan along the road. And usually it's the vulnerable users of the road, which are the pedestrians, the cyclists, and the motorists who are at risk of having these dangerous encounters with people who are protected by their vehicles. And the thing is, cars are tended to given priority despite being the minority. In Metro Manila in particular, there is about less than 10% of the households that own cars. Now, it would have increased kasi this study was done around 4 years ago, and with the need for better mobility, and I think when I was doing this, it was also during the pandemic time. So, medyo nag-decrease yung car ownership because we weren't allowed to go out during the pandemic. But definitely less than 10% of the households were owning cars, and probably only maybe a quarter have motorcycles. And the owners of the private motor vehicles are especially the ones who are in the minority, because that means and implies that 90% of the people who are on the roads are actually commuters, are the ones who don't own their own cars. And right now, the design philosophy in our streets is that we should serve the private vehicles more. Siyempre, ayaw natin ibagalan kasi sasabihin ng mga driver, bakit natin uunahin yung cyclists? Bakit natin uunahin yung pedestrians? Why are we stopping for them? Siyempre, haling ng daan. Yun yung nagiging psychological bias ng cars, ng drivers, and car owners within the Philippines. And this is not unique to the Philippines. It is a problem that's being faced globally. The car dependency, especially here in the Middle East, kitang-kita natin yan. No one can be as mobile as they want if they don't have their own cars. So, this is not unique to our country. And the good thing about that is because it's not unique to our country, that means we can apply some of the principles that we've seen in other countries to also see how it would work in the Philippine setting. And now, so yung last point na is that roads are designed to serve private motor vehicles, and often there are no meaningful spaces for sidewalks and bike lanes. So ito isa sa mga current hot issues, whether there's a good decision being made in providing cycle lanes or converting existing pedestrian bridges to accommodate cyclists. And typically, medyo band-aid solution yung nakikita ninyo na pictures here, because these are very temporary measures. They're done in a hurry, so usually they're just done to answer the calls of certain advocacy groups. Pero clearly, we are lacking in planning for this kind of infrastructure, because if we want to protect other people on the streets, we also need to plan for them. Hindi siya dapat afterthought. And now, sidewalks and bike lanes are becoming optional instead of a fundamental part of the street space. And there's also no legal cover and protection for any of the people with disability. So this is a shame, because we are taking the opportunities away from people who most need them. And because we cannot serve them properly, hindi natin sila nabibigyan ng good services for this. And what people don't realize is when there's traffic, and you are thinking that the only way to solve the problem is to build another road, then you're just shifting the problem to another area. Kasi ganito, ang traffic is very interconnected. You cannot contain it into one place. So once you solve the problem in one location, it shoots out somewhere else. And that's something that transport engineers and transport planners always have to look at. So I guess from experience, hindi natin masyadong nakakausap yung mga transport engineers, because we sit right in front of the pre-concept design stages. Hindi na namin nakakausap yung people on site because we are at the planning parts. Nandun kami sa feasibility stages. So kung hindi ka gaano involved sa feasibility and planning, very small yung interaction nyo with transport engineers. But this is why we need to be careful and we need to also revise our understanding and mindset and framework whenever we look at infrastructure or structural planning. Kasi we tend to forget the other part of it, which is transportation, which is one of the things that brings people to whatever development you are building. And I think for the next slide, you will see here a very common picture na kumakalat yan sa social media. Everyone in social media has shared this. Sinasabi nila the spaces that cars take only represent a few people as compared to what the public transit or what cyclists would take. And this is a very powerful image. But how, as engineers, do we convert this into reality? Because right now, it's very easy to say, for advocates to say that we need to better optimize the roads and all that. But this is our job as engineers to tell them how we can optimize it. So right now, the walking, cycling, and public transport modes are taking more people as the same space that the private roads are taking, the private cars are taking. And from a non-transport perspective, private cars are also more costly, they have more financial impacts, and more environmentally damaging. And that's why there is opportunity moving on to other sustainable technologies like AV or automated vehicles, and Tesla's hybrid and electric vehicle charging. So to offset the costs that a private car is incurring on the network, nagde-develop yung ng technologies that are apart from civil engineering to enable the to offset the costs that are being incurred. But definitely, if there is also technology injected in mass transit and also biking and all the other modes, then we can have a more improved, more efficient overall transport system. Right now, this is the current mode share of transportation in the Philippines in Metro Manila. 32% represent walking. Hindi yun obvious because we cannot walk long trips. But for most of our transactions on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people walk. Siguro, hindi yun applicable para sa mga engineers dito, but in Metro Manila, a lot of the people walk to their works, walk to their home, walk to their schools, and we see that in the numbers that are being reflected. Then the next biggest user naman is jeepney. So, of course, meron ng e-jeeps ngayon, and 21% of the population uses jeepneys to go to their destinations. And that coincides with the car ownership data that we have. 18% take the tricycle, so for shorter trips, definitely tricycles can cover that. And 7% is taken by the bus. So, ito naman yung 7%, mas tataas pa yan if we have better planning in buses, and also, one of the hot issues ngayon, yung pagtanggal ng bus lane sa EDSA carousel. This is something that could be improved if we ever fortify the bus transit infrastructure in the Philippines. And kung makita ninyo, the private motors and the private car, which comprises the 9% and the 13%, yan lang yung privately owned vehicles na nakikita on the road right now. Kung makakita kayo ng picture ng EDSA, hindi nyo iisipin na 20% lang ng users yung nandun. Kasi the cars are filling everything. But that 20% is actually, but those cars that are filling the 5 lanes are only just 20% of the people who are using EDSA. The 80% are walking along the sidewalks, using the MRT, are on jeeps, are on buses, and are using their bicycles. So, underrepresentative yung other modes because we are only seeing the cars and these motors on the road. And sila lang yung napaprioritize natin in planning. So, what is the current trend right now? So, for the sake of sustainability, a lot of cities, a lot of governments are calling for inclusive mobility. Hindi na kasi sustainable na puro cars lang ang ina-address ng ating infrastructure. We have to make sure that we are addressing the needs of the underrepresented people and that we are also increasing the safety and efficiency for them. So, for inclusive mobility, the four key components is that the roads are designed to be safe for pedestrians and cyclists, and the roads are able to offer space for shade and greenery. Kasi syempre, if the environment of the road is much better suited for walking and cycling, then we'll be able to increase the number of cyclists and pedestrians we see on the road. And of course, we also have to think of roads as something that is part of the public open space, meaning hindi natin siya pwedeng privatize, hindi natin siya pwedeng for our own sake lang. We cannot be selfish about our own roads. And of course, the fourth key element is that the roads is also designed for the public transportation. In the Philippines, these are the current types of street categories that we have. We have vehicle-oriented roads, we have shared roads, and we have car-free roads. The Philippines has a lot of vehicle-oriented roads. But the reality is, nagiging shared roads yung mga vehicle-oriented roads natin because we don't give enough space for people. Not a lot of people have cars. So, imbis na maging vehicle-oriented lang siya, napapalakad yung mga tao, they have to take the public transit kasi hindi na efficient na going by car, spending hours inside the car alone. So, we are seeing the shift na although the roads are designed for vehicles, we are prioritizing the cars, we are making things faster, we are not giving speed limits, then nagiging shared road siya kasi hindi na kaya. So, right now, and even then, the car-free is just an emerging trend that is only being practiced on a temporary basis. So, wala tayong makitang car-free roads sa Pilipinas. Only when there are certain events that roads are being closed, saka siya nagiging car-free. But in other countries, they strive to meet this kind of different categories because for them, each road category has a certain function. Hindi ka pwedeng maglagay ng highway sa isang maliit na barangay. Definitely, hindi nyo pwedeng gawin yun. And ang shared roads, hindi nyo pwedeng ilagay from a key corridor na nagko-connect ng mga major cities and regions. So this is the kind of matrix that is being planned for the UAE, at least for Ras Al Khaimah. We're looking at changing the road hierarchy and categories that we have in there. Kasi medyo brownfield medyo greenfield pa yung Ras Al Khaimah. So there's a lot of opportunity to be taken there. So we're taking it a new philosophical approach that we are defining kung ano yung function ng bawat category of the road. For example, our first category, which is the vehicle-oriented category, would be defined as a high mobility and low place-making road. So, if you are high mobility, that means you prioritize the speeds, you prioritize the movement of the cars and all. And if it's a low place-making, that means you don't accommodate people sitting or staying in that certain corridor. So, this vehicle-oriented road should be applied for the expressways and the highways, the national roads that we have in the Philippines. And these are serving as the national and regional connectors of cities and provinces. Currently, the DPWH classifies roads into this bullet points na green po na lang siya. So, the national primary roads, the expressways, the bypasses, and the national secondary roads should be designed to the standard of vehicle-oriented roads. Yung second category naman natin are the shared roads. So for shared roads, they are medium mobility and medium place-making. So these are the roads where equal yung priority ng movement and equal yung priority ng activity and economy for the roads. So, it facilitates route distribution in provinces or cities. And usually, dito mo dapat makita yung mga malls and also, let's kind of take away from the usual pattern na nangyayari ngayon where we have malls right in front of expressways. Medyo mahirap yung i-mitigate. So we should be, as engineers and planners, we should be the ones advising potential stakeholders to relocate it somewhere else, which would have a better accessibility and less impacts to the public. So dito papasok naman in the current DPWH standards yung national tertiary roads, provincial roads / local roads, the municipal and city roads, and even the barangay roads. So yung mga main roads natin, dapat gawin natin shared roads because these are for where people work, where people live. So the placemaking is really high here. So we need to be able to address the needs of those kinds of people. And of course, the last category is the car-free roads. So for car-free roads, they are low to medium mobility, meaning hindi dapat mabilis yung roads dyan, hindi mabilis yung takbo ninyo. And it is a high place-making road, which means there should be opportunity for activities to develop in that kind of road, even if it's a frontage road or all that. And usually these are the kinds of roads that facilitates the local access to the developments directly and to the areas of interest. So dito rin papasok yung municipal and city roads at barangay roads. Now, the main gap in our, at least in the Philippines that we are seeing, is that although we have the categories already set out for this, the subcategories, I mean the bulleted list of road hierarchy, and there are standards being applied. Usually, hindi siya na-apply and hindi siya na-i-implement properly because of a lack of organization and a lack of coordination with the city-town planners and also the engineers that are being involved. In transportation engineering, medyo nagiging small yung view ng transport engineer because they're only responsible about the road in front of them. So their goal is to adhere to the standards, but there's no use of adhering to the standards if you aren't able to understand the human behavior, the traffic behavior that's currently being exhibited or forecasted for the development that you are proposing and designing. So how do we do that? When we talk about humanizing the roads, we should map out the users on the roads. In the Philippines, we are only currently seeing the motorists. Our roads don't have provisions for pedestrians, cyclists, or transits. Usually, we only have these 2 lanes, and pinaghahatian yan ng napakadaming tao. You are putting the freight in there, you are putting the transit, you are mixing the cyclists and the pedestrians. So, hindi natin maiwasan na magkaroon ng accidents, ng safety issues, magkaroon ng gulo sa roads natin because we are treating so much people here. We are trying to combine them in one singular space when what we should be doing as engineers is to provide them with their appropriate space. So for example, the pedestrian, someone that is a very vulnerable user of the road, should be properly protected. The same for the cyclists. Ang nangyayari sa Pilipinas ngayon, pag yung cyclist biglang dumaan sa tabi mo, ikaw pa yung magagalit. Pero dapat hindi gano'n. So dapat magkaroon din tayo ng change in mindset, how we see other users of the road. Going back. And then, transit. Siyempre, transit is something that we should provide space for. Kung yung bus ninyo laging tumitigil dahil nasa-stop siya ng traffic, na-part siya ng congestion, hindi rin kayo makakaabot dun sa destination ninyo in the time that you're targeting. Because you already have a lot of congestion and stops within the transit line itself. So, minimix nyo yung mga things that aren't supposed to mix together. And ideally, it should have its own space. Of course, the freight, yung freight medyo small element pa siya of transport planning. Although now in the UAE, there's currently truck movement strategy development going on for the entire UAE, and big part of that is the Etihad Rail. And their main issue is to address the freight transportation connectivity, because especially for the UAE, the seven Emirates have its own industries and ports, and they serve different functions. But to increase the economic activity, they have to optimize the freight routes and the truck movement. So this is also something that has to be considered when deciding for the roads. And of course, of forget na part of the roads as well as the active frontage. So if you've been to Europe or even to the US and all, you will see a lot of public open air cafes. And typically people say that's not something we can do in the Philippines kasi mainit or something, the environment doesn't allow for it. But you would be surprised to see a lot of economic studies saying that otherwise, that people want to go and become active outside. So there's also opportunities for business owners and private developers to take advantage of the active frontage development to increase their presence and visibility among the public. And then, as we go on to the more detailed sectors or the more detailed parts of each of the road users, dito na pumapasok yung mga traffic highway engineers, because we have to ensure that the safety standards are being followed so that we can accommodate all these zones that we consider. So the first one is the frontage zone. So the frontage zone is where all the businesses happen. This is where people are active. So makikita niyo dyan sa mock-up ng cross-section is the cafes or even people just looking at the storefronts. Yung clear zone naman, this is usually where the people should walk. So typically sa clear zone, if we want to promote a good walking culture, dapat walang obstruction sa clear zone. Kaya nga ang tawag sa kanya clear zone. Because you don't want tripping hazards, you don't want safety hazards to hinder the clear zone. So you have to give at least a 1.2 meter width for the clear zones. And whatever structure that you need to provide for the street, whether it is landscaping, lighting, or utilities, you have to put it on the street furniture zone. So for the street furniture zone, medyo malaki yung street furniture zone because especially in the UAE, the utilities are underground. So we have to maintain good access to the utilities for the maintenance and all that. So malaki yung part na ginagawa ng street furniture, hindi lang siya visible up, meron din siyang implications down. And then, of course, the next zone naman that we are considering is for the cyclists. So the first zone in cycling is the curb zone. So curb zones, those are the stone pavements that you see on the sidewalk. And typically, the curb zone also houses the street furniture. So if wala kang space for the corridor to have a separate street furniture, then you have to use your curb zone for that. And the one that is bordering the curb zone is the curb. So yun yung mga tiles na nakikita ninyo at the edge of the road, those are curbs. And it separates the non-travel pathways to the travel path, from the travel pathways. And if you have a cycling path, then of course you have to have a cycleway clear path where again, you cannot put any obstructions in there. Kasi ayaw na naman matumpay yung cyclists ninyo. And the buffer zone usually protects the cyclist from the oncoming traffic. So you have to have a certain lead to apply it para fully protected yung cyclist nyo. So hindi natin dapat makita nag-mix yung cyclists and motorists. But unfortunately, this is something that we are encountering right now, and that's a legacy problem for all cities around the world. Places like Paris and London, they didn't start with this kind of segregation of road users. They started with smaller roads as well. But they are working every year to give protection, give more rights, and give more opportunities for other road users. And this is what the Philippines and even the Middle East should aim for. And of course, the other part is the transit stop or the transit zones. So when we talk about transit zones, dahil nga ayaw natin ma-interrupt yung transit line, we have to give them the appropriate infrastructure for this. So for example, first off, we should have a transit stop zone. So this is where the people should be able to access the buses or the BRTs, the MRTs, whatever public transport that you have to provide a stop somewhere off the road. Hindi dapat tayo sa road nagbababa at papasakay ng mga tao. Dapat on the side sila so that they're better protected and they also don't interrupt the flow. And of course, a transit running way is like the equivalent of the clear zone for pedestrians and the pedestrian cycle, the cyclist clear zones for the buses and other kinds of modes. And of course, again, there's always going to be a buffer for protection naman ng mga transit modes from the fast-running. So, these are some of the details of the mapping of road users. This is actually a guideline that is developed by the Abu Dhabi, and it's called the USDM, or the Universal Street Design Manual. And currently, this is one of the best developed manuals that we are trying to replicate in Ras Al Khaimah as we move on for planning for future districts and even other developments. So for recommendations, ibalik lang natin siya dun sa urban quality of life indicators natin kanina. As I said earlier, the environment, the physical layout, and mobility elements are the ones that we can change as engineers. And these are the things that we should be pushing our technical expertise on. But how can we do that in the Philippines? First, what we'd like you to know is that transport specialists in the Philippines have already done studies. There are a lot of consultants, there are a lot of interest groups that are advocating for transportation equality and equity in the Philippines. And they are backed by numbers. Hindi yan basta-basta lang pre-represent. For example, from my alma mater, the UP has NCTS. So they are at the forefront of developing and championing these studies. But and the thing is, the gap that's currently going on right now is, although we have the data, we have the policies, we have the benchmarking practices, we are unable to bridge the gap in the problems because we are not able to implement them. So what we recommend is that engineers, especially engineers that are associated with PICE, and I think the PICE National would definitely be a big help for this, is that the engineers should be at the forefront of these dialogues. When you talk about mobility and transport equity in the Philippines, usually mga lawyers, mga advocates yung nagpa-front niyan. And although there are good speakers, there are good people, they have the best intentions at heart, an engineer fronting it would be able to rationalize better kung bakit mag-work yun. Because these ideas are good on paper, but because it is an emerging field, hindi siya gaano well-tested even in other countries. And other countries have their own conditions and constraints that might not be necessarily applicable sa Pilipinas. So whatever good results they might have might not be reflected well in the Philippines. So we have to combat this kind of speculative proposals by fronting people who have done the studies, who have done the modeling, who have tested all the possible scenarios. And as a way for that, especially in the Philippines, we should be encouraging more people to go into transportation, engineering, and of course the PICE National would definitely help in that by equipping and supporting people in those fields that are interested, by recommending a policy framework that provides the checks and balances to to the transportation needs of the places and activities. So, hindi lang tayo dapat technical, we should also have a heart as civil engineers. And the heart of our job is not just communicating our findings, but convincing the people that this is what you need to improve your quality of life. And I think transport engineers and all other construction engineers, lahat tayo, we need to do that, not just for our clients, but also for the good of all the public. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.